day, is it May the 20th is our shred day, is that correct? So I want to thank her for all her work, and this is something that we did last year, but she took the lead on that, and I appreciate you reaching out to Cincinnati Federal, who is going to be, again, our partner and helping sponsor the event. So we'll have shred day from 9 to noon on Saturday, May the 20th, right here in our parking lot. They can just pull on through. If we could try to get maybe a couple of volunteers or folks that want to help that day, but looking forward to that. And the news that I don't want to update, but I will share that we had a meeting last week, and it was former trustee Paul Beck, and Administrator Dan Reed, and myself met with Branstetter Carroll and County Engineer, Deputy County Engineer Todd Gadberry, and they sort of dropped a bomb on us as it relates to the roundabout. They informed us that the previous estimate for the total cost of the project was $1.8 million. Post-COVID, post-inflation, post all of those things, you know, supply chains and whatever else, their new estimate is approximately $4 million. And if there is a contingency built in, that could go as high as $4.5 million. So a project that started in November of 2015, correct? Is that what you said? So we're going on 8 years, is going from 1.8 to 4 to 4.5 million dollars. With that in mind, they believe and recommend that we essentially give the grant back and reapply in September. This was a punch to the gut. This is not something that any of us could foresee coming. There's no way we would be able to track the estimates until we got the estimates from the county engineer. And again, it was like getting a lead brick just dropped on us. The theory is that right now, again, as we've said several times, the state had committed to 50% of the project, the county had committed to 30% of the project, and we were in for 20% of the project. Well, that's 20% of 1.8, not 4 to 4.5. The county was in for 30% of the project at 1.8, not 4 to 4.5. And the state, again, they're 50%. So to make up that difference, we would be looking at about a $2 million ballpark hit to us if we didn't just go back to the state. If we can go back to the state, and this is through the Ohio Department of Public Works, we could reapply in September. We're told that we would get an answer probably before the end of the year. And the thought is that we would ask for those same percentages. So the state would be providing 50% at the 4 to 4.5. The county would be 30%, and everyone would kick up. So for us, obviously at the 1.8, you know, you're looking at 20%. You know, you're going from 360,000 to 800,000. That's a hit, but it's something that if the state is going to assume a much larger hit and the county is going to assume a larger hit, it's something that I think we can look at. They think that our chances are good of getting this approved if we reapply, but I don't see much of any other option that we have at this point unless we're just going to completely pull the plug. It's unbelievable that we've gotten this far and done this much and had so many meetings and everything else, that we've actually started to move some utilities to get that information dropped in our lap right now. So again, my role here is to, one, inform the board of that meeting and that update, and then ask whether we have an appetite to and are on board with basically returning the money or declining and basically walking away from that original grant and whether we want to reapply, and then in September, then we will continue to work with Branstad and Carroll, we will continue to work with the county engineer and push forward and have everything ready to go. It would be awarded, we're told we would find out towards the end of the year, but that it's actually goes into effect July 1 of 2024. So if we did this, we could have everything teed up. We already have the drawings. The good news is that it was finally approved over umpteenth revisions from ODOT. That was approved, and that was the only good news we got that day. So there shouldn't be any more revisions, there shouldn't be any more approvals, there shouldn't be really much of anything else to do other than to continue to prepare and then wait and see. They said if we didn't go that route, we could apply for federal grants, and that the timeline for federal funding is estimated between 4 and 5 years. I told them, and maybe this was a knee-jerk reaction after getting that update, that I don't know that this community, after dealing with this for 8 years and talking about it, has the appetite to wait another 4 or 5 years. So I think our option is to just forget it, and then we would look at some turn lanes and some things, or to move forward with reapplying in September. So any questions from the audience and or the board? Yes, ma'am.
If you go back to the turn lanes, is the state gonna get out of it altogether?
Most
They're the
likely.
ones that pushed the roundabout.
They are pushing the roundabout. That is their priority. That is their goal. They haven't said no, but in my conversation, so I spoke with Fred Schlimm from the county engineer. He's basically the one that oversees a lot of these projects, oversees the funding, the grant proposals, everything else. And he is telling me that he thinks that it would score well if we go back to it as a roundabout, but he doesn't know what to say beyond that, and that there's really little other commitments beyond that.
What's our amount if we go back and apply in the fall? Or would our contribution be
20% or being
Yeah.
800,000 plus.
I thought that's what you said, I just wanted to make sure.
So, I mean,
Is the
to get a
county
nice
committed?
round, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is the county committed?
The county is saying that they are still committed at the 30%, at the higher amount. They still feel obligated and bad that this is all working out that way. And we asked them in the meeting whether they could do 30% or 40% or anything higher now, not to delay it even further. And they said they have already allocated and earmarked all of their budget so that they have no ability this year to go up. But if we go next year, they are committed to the 30% of that higher amount.
Does the state willing to go any higher?
So they don't know. We could ask for an increase, and instead of asking for 50%, we could go to 60% or whatever else. The problem with that is that they rate the application of the grants, and that you get less points the higher percentage that you ask for. So it hurts our chances of it being approved. And the problem is that it's an all or nothing. So it's not like they say, well, we don't like that you went for 60%, but let's talk about 50%. If we ask for 60 or 70% and they say no, the answer is no, and it's done. So there's no negotiation whatsoever. And so that's something that he said they could run. Fred Schlimm said that he would run some numbers for me if I wanted, but he feels like his initial reaction is to stick with the breakdown that we've had previously.
Are we on the hook for any of the work that's been done thus far?
That's what we're negotiating. We're trying to look through the old documents that were signed years and years and years ago, as far as who pays for the utilities that have already been moving, and so we're talking to the county engineer about that.
What do they want to commit from this?
mean, I said that we would bring it up at tonight's meeting and have a discussion, but, you know, if the board isn't ready to commit, I think that we can, I'll let them know.
Well, if we can just talk about it more and look into it more.
If I may,
I haven't talked to
what I
Dan
heard-
about it at all, nor have I talked to you about it.
The application goes into September. We would have to sign off on that application in September. So, I mean, I think that obviously Fred would wanna prepare it prior to September. But, what they said is it gets submitted in September for the next year. You probably know by December, as Trustee Robison said. But they probably don't wanna work on it if the board doesn't have an appetite for the 800 something thousand.
Here's the problem, and all that is correct, but they are currently in negotiations and have been in negotiations with the landowners for
Right.
easements right now. And they're looking, and so while we would maybe have until September, the sooner the better, because they want to have some idea of what direction we're trying to go with this, so that they know, like Mr. Lee said, to continue those negotiations, acquire the property that's necessary for the project, and that could even help our application to be able to say, all the Ts are crossed, all the Is are dotted, you know, we already have this, and this, and it's ready to roll.
As far as the turnabouts are concerned, in an emergency situation, being able to maneuver these, fire trucks around these turnabouts, does that seem to be a problem, or?
It would be big enough for someone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So about the roundabout itself?
I mean, you'd have to have a fire truck that actually disconnected and.
It would,
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have been, it would not have been even considered.
Right.
Mike, I got a question. It was approved at 1.8, you're talking between 4 and 4.5. And if I understood you correctly, this would not even begin until July of '24. That's 15 to 16 months away. Is inflation already built in that 4 to 4.5, or when July shows up, are they gonna say, okay, it's 5.5? We all know material's going up daily. And I know they're moving forward with this project. Someone is right now, because the utility poles are already out there. They're getting ready to set them. They've already spotted the telephone and everything, and there's been quite an amount of interest in this project already. So someone is assuming this project's gonna go on.
We were all.
Duke Energy is not gonna set them poles for no reason. The poles that are there right now, I would assume are adequate. They're moving them for a reason. And I would say they're gonna move those poles within the next 30 days. They're already on site land. So I don't know if they're playing bluff tactics or whatever, but I do believe they feel this project is going to move forward. That's personally my anticipation. And I'm assuming, they're assuming the township's gonna go that route, because someone out there is spending money. The township's not paying Duke to move these poles, are we?
That's
We
why I
haven't
asked
received the
for-
bill yet?
That's why I asked if we're on the hook for any of the.
That's what I'm getting at. There's things out here taking place right now that the public might not be aware of, but I think the surveying and what I see, this is in the beginning phases to move forward.
100%, couldn't agree more with everything you said. So we had, I mean, all indications were we needed to move forward.
Okay, but
100%,
but the-
up until that meeting where they dropped that bomb and let us know.
Right.
And so everything had been given the green light from the county engineer, from the engineer, Branstad and Carroll. Everyone was on board with moving forward until they just dropped this new estimate in our lap. As far as, all I can tell you is that they're projecting, no one has a crystal ball, but they're projecting that 4 to 4.5 being that cost, knowing that it's, their estimate was 3.9 to 4. They're building in a contingency of basically 5 to 600,000. Understanding that there could be increased costs over the next, 15 months. So that's where we would hope to be around 4. Maybe it's 4, 4.1, 4.2, or whatever else. The reason that they gave that's a large gap, admittedly, but when they're saying 4 to 4.5, that's them building in that contingency for inflation, whatever else. Yes?
But why, and maybe this is what you meant by the start to finish, why has this taken 8 years? I get this doesn't happen overnight, but why is an 8-year, if this started, I didn't realize it started in 2015, why the 8 years?
All I can say, I've only been here for 15 months or so, but all I can say is that Branstetter Carroll was hired from the county engineer at the time, which was Ted Hubbard. And that was not our preferred engineer, civil engineer. And my understanding of the history of it is that they had several project managers at Branstetter Carroll that left in the middle of the project, and they had to either hire someone on, promote someone, do whatever to reassume the oversight of those projects, which created delay after delay after delay and problems and everything else.
So we just basically
we have not
found
been
their
thrilled.
loophole of.
I'm just gonna say, we have not been thrilled, and Trustee Beck could say the same thing if he wants, with the performance of Branstetter Carroll over those years, and yet that was not our decision as a township. That was a decision that the county engineer made and have stuck with. So it's really a county. The project is overseen by the county. We're obviously the customers, and that's why we're in for 20%, but we're not calling the shots. It's really the county engineer and Branstetter Carroll. Does all that sound accurate? Okay.
We actually went through 5 different project managers through Branstetter Carroll. COVID had basically put this thing in limbo for about 1.5 years through COVID. There was no meetings, it was just a problem with COVID. But the Branstetter Carroll, as Mike has said, was the engineer selected by Hamilton County. It was not our choice, but they're the ones that made that choice. And 5 different project engineers have been on this. Come and left, they had a guy, one of the people that came to Branstetter Carroll for about 2 years was hired from the state of Indiana Highway Department and made a lot of progress with this gentleman. And all of a sudden, and this was probably at the end of COVID, he just up and left and went back to Indiana Highway Department. And basically, it just put everything in limbo for another 6 months until they found a person to continue on. And it's just been a real nightmare. But believe me, the project has been approved by the state, which we got that email at the meeting last week. We've been after the state. The state has bounced back and forth, giving reasons that they wanted this done, that done. All those things have been done. The email actually came last week, the day before the meeting, that ODOT has given the blessing to the design. So the design is there. All I can say is, the county made a statement last week at the meeting that they see this project as to go and fund it and be done. And I think we're in the middle of it. If we can find a way with TIF money to fund this extra money, let's move on and get the daggone thing done.
So it sounds like Miami Township got caught, not to our fault, because of this company that the county said to go with, we got the wrong end of the deal. I mean, really.
Originally, the plan was to have turn lanes, then in order to get the state involved, we had to agree to go with the roundabout. And that's how we got into the roundabout situation. But originally it was gonna be turn lanes when we bought the property at the corner. I think we might need to table this until our next meeting's in 2 weeks, maybe we meet the county, the entire board, just to see if they're sure it can go through and. Is that too tight a schedule for them, or
I'll check, I'll see if they'll request.
maybe come out anytime between now and next meeting, or you can come next meeting?
Plans on it.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
My final, item is that, at our organizational meeting in January, I was assigned the IT, to be a part of one of my committees, and, then, 2 weeks later, after one of our meetings, the next morning, our IT network administrator resigned, unexpectedly, and so at that time, I said that I was going to evaluate the IT operations over the next 2 months, in which I've done that. Actually, Mr. Reed and I jumped on a virtual meeting with our IT third-party vendor. I've had countless meetings, discussions, emails, virtual meetings, calls, all the above. And that, in my opinion, the third-party vendor has done a decent job of stabilizing our day-to-day operation. However, we could probably use some help as it relates to just project management and some of the bigger things. So, it is my recommendation as, overseeing IT that, we put out a job posting for a IT coordinator, and that I'd like to do that with Mr. Reed in the next couple of days. It's from the board.
Well, I think, didn't it come up here, not the last meeting, the meeting before, we met, we was gonna, look at bringing Mike Taylor back in. And you asked us to extend it for 2 weeks to get information as to what it would cost for the IMS company or for Mike Taylor. I don't know if you ever talked to Cindy about the cost. Cindy told me no one had talked to her about the cost, and the cost was actually $5,000 a month for the IMS company. Mike Taylor is gonna do it for $35,000 a year, being on call, living right down the street, and I was just wanting to know what happened there. We should have voted on this last week. You didn't want to do it last week because you were worried about the number of people might be here from the news media, so we tabled it. Let me finish it.
Okay.
We tabled it, and the week before that, we didn't vote on it because you want to have time to talk to Cindy about what it costs for the contractor to do the job. Now, did you talk to Cindy? Because we didn't know information from you about what it cost to.
First of all, I would like to clarify, you're saying that I tabled this or said anything of that nature the last meeting. There was zero discussion whatsoever, and at the conclusion of the meeting, you adjourned and turned that way and said, let's just deal with that next time. I said nothing about tabling it, and so I don't appreciate you accusing me. We didn't have an executive session.
Yes, we did.
Last meeting? We did not. We did not. No, we did not.
Okay,
So there was, so don't say that there was, you know, the media was here and then I was afraid that there were too many people. That might have been someone else on the board, but it wasn't me, I can tell you that. So what is your reason?
I want to know, did you go to Cindy and get the cost of the IMS, what we were paying them? Because we've got no information at all on this. The original thought on this meeting was gonna vote for Mike Taylor's contract.
You were talking about proposing that last meeting or this meeting.
Yes.
So,
Yes, go ahead.
So, yeah, if you'd like to discuss that, I'm more than happy to discuss that and if have prepared for that, but you were proposing to hire Mike Taylor back
Right.
at $35,000.
Right. You made a comment that you don't hire people back, we won't give you 2 weeks vacation. The county doesn't do that, you don't want to do it. Or 2 weeks advance notice, I'm sorry.
All right, Mr.
Because
Blaine.
Mike didn't give you 2 weeks notice. This is the first we've heard about this, since You never did interview Mike Taylor about his proposal. A man who's been here 20 years plus. He's done the IT work. You never once interviewed him about his proposal, according to him. I just wonder why.
Mr. Blaine, do you have any comments on the matter?
I think when Jack brought the idea of bringing Mike back, I thought it was a good idea. I still think it's a good idea. Money, which he's got the experience, and he's been here doing our IT since, I think, 2014 for the township. And then if we're paying $35,000, I think the part-time IT tech and him with the county is close to $80,000, $50,000 to $80,000.
$50,837.
So, 50,000. So, I think it would behoove us to bring him back and pay the $35,000 and have him on 24 hours, 7 days a week call. If we have something come up at the fire station at 2 AM that we need taken care of, and he's already got the experience here, and he's familiar with all the hardware and everything we have. I think it's a win-win for us and the township and our budget.
Okay. So, first of all, this isn't personal for me. I don't have a long-standing friendship with this individual like anyone else on the board. I'm purely looking at this situation like I do every situation, which is from a business perspective, and only weighing what I think is best for Miami Township. However, I was completely shocked and horrified to learn that other board members have been pursuing this idea. On January 18th, we had this board meeting, and again, I discussed that I would wait 2 months and do an evaluation. At that time, again, the next morning, we received a resignation from Mr. Taylor, and it said, I quote, "It is clear to me that we will not be able to resolve our differences." That was in the resignation. It was clear to me we will not be able to resolve our differences, so he resigned on the spot. The action of this longtime employee giving zero notice put our township in a serious predicament. Again, we took phone calls, emails, virtual meetings, and whatnot, and I've worked with IMS, our vendor, over the last 2 months to get to this point. I said that I would come back and give a proposal and an idea at that point, and that's exactly what I just did. Meanwhile, again, apparently others are having their own conversations with this former employee, and now are proposing to rehire him at an annual salary of $35,000. I checked with a local HR director and gave a generic hypothetical scenario, leaving out names, but essentially asking about the situation we have before us. They had 2 very direct comments. One, it is common practice that any employee who leaves without giving at least 2 weeks' notice are typically put on a, quote, not eligible for rehire list. And 2, rehiring a disgruntled employee is a risk, but that if that employee is an IT and entrusted with accessing and controlling information, that increases the security risk exponentially. During the process of evaluating our IT operation these past 2 months, I also discovered several red flags related to how our former employee handled certain matters, which gives me cause for concern. Furthermore, I asked and learned from our fiscal officer that the former part-time employee in question was making $16,584 annually. Your proposal to bring him back at $35,000 would result in a 211% raise. That exorbitant raise would essentially reward someone who left us in a real bind. I think this would be devastating for the morale of our employees who have remained committed to this township and proved their dedication each and every day. Our administrator, who also drafted the job description for an IT coordinator position, as opposed to the IT network administrator, which would save us and our taxpayers money if we choose to post and hire for that position. So with that said, the statement from the former employee that we won't be able to resolve our differences, the advice of an experienced professional HR director saying this is a terrible idea, not good business practice, and substantial risk, security risk, the red flags which I've uncovered, the unnecessary waste of taxpayers' dollars because I've identified more cost-effective options, and the devastating impact on morale for our current employees. For those reasons and more, I choose to stand with our township employees and with our township taxpayers. But if you'd rather ignore that and side with a longtime friend, then that's your choice. That's how I feel, and I'm more than willing to talk about more of the issues, but it's just this, we can't keep doing business like we've done business for a long time. And I'm here to try to take a professional approach, a business-minded approach. I think we need to post the job, hire the best, most qualified person for the job, and not go against HR, IT, red flags, taxpayers, and just a huge blow to our current employees, our current staff.
Okay, that's very good writing. And who's the individual you talked to from HR, or is it the same one you wanted to bring out to analyze it for, you talked about?
I can look at my emails, but I talked to, it's actually a consulting firm that's downtown that is a private sector, but they do a lot of work with public sector jurisdictions like ourselves, cities, townships, and villages, and asked them, they are part of the, it's SHRIM, Senior Human Resource Management coalition that's through the greater Cincinnati area. And I think that that is a completely unbiased, I had no idea who they were. I looked them up, I Googled them, I called them, emailed them, and that was their response.
Okay.
And they said that it's widespread, that while it is not legally required to give 2 weeks notice, that it is abundantly clear and best practices, that it's expected that you do that, and that the vast majority of your time, both in the public sector and private sector, if you walk out with giving no notice, you're not going to be eligible for rehire.
Mike, what salary are you thinking to post on this job description that you had Dan draw on?
Well, no, I didn't have,
It's surely not gonna be $35,000.
that's correct. He was making $16,584, I'm thinking between $18,000 and $20,000.
You're not gonna get anybody for
Well,
that.
the proposal he made to you that nobody bothered to read apparently was that, he was gonna increase the hours he was gonna be available, number one. Number two, I don't know if you asked this company, is whoever they send to you, runs cable, Mike, did all your cable in your office, Dan? Just a minute. He ran the cable, and somebody you go online and get to do this will not do audio visual. It will not run cable. Mike Taylor does both. Mike Taylor goes down to Walmart and gets TVs, brings up there and mounts them for, cause you want it done right away. I'm not too sure someone you get under a contract's gonna do that, not being paid each time they make a run.
No, that's.
Let me finish. I let you finish. I let you said that in bad mouth for a long time.
I thought you finished.
What wasn't said was that Mike Taylor, who's been here, yes, he's been here a long time. I've never had no outside affiliation with Mike. I see him talking once in a while. But when he's a fireman, he'd be out here on working as a fireman, and they'd actually bring him up to do work on the IT system, like he was really a fireman, when he wasn't making a run, no charge. He'd run cable, no charge. He does TVs over here that isn't extra charge, but you're gonna pay extra for all that stuff. And the $35,000 came from a review of job description in Cincinnati. They wanted $50,837.
Right, the city.
Mike works for Ticketmaster. They hired 2 people to work for 30 hours a week. It cost them $80,000 starting out, part-time people. Mike Taylor, if you call him, when you got an event over here and something happens to the audiovisual, he lives about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away, he'll come up and take care of it. He's done it in the past. And another thing, one of the reasons there's a conflict was, guy been here 20-some years and done all this work, not charging, does this work. And somebody said, well, I wanna bring somebody in who's getting ready to retire and to review the IT system. Now, what you said? Did you say that, Mike, over there? You said you know somebody's gonna retire, you wanna bring them in to review our system. Did you not say that?
Can I address that?
Yep.
Okay, yes, there was an individual in Delhi that was retiring, and she had been a longtime network administrator. And when I was assigned the IT, as the oversight of IT, the first week of January is when I oversaw IT. So, do you know what a WAN is? No, I don't either. Do you know what I mean, I could pull up one of these bills, I'll look right now. Do you know what a HOSNet SWGLB 48 PoE or a WAP or I don't know what that is, right?
Yeah.
So for us to make an informed decision, now I let you talk. So for us to make an informed decision about IT, no one on this board knows these things, nor does Mr. Reed. So we need to have someone that can make an informed decision and give us. There has to be some oversight of our employees. We're going through what lack of oversight, caused problems for. So I needed to just have someone come in and say, hey, you're doing a great job or you're not. And so when I proposed to bring someone in, to pull back the curtain, to lift up the hood and say, what's going on? Are you guys doing a fantastic job? Are you doing a terrible job? Are you doing an adequate job? I don't know. Then it's very concerning to me that the individual resigns the next morning. The very next morning when he hears about this, albeit that he shouldn't have, because the only conversation that was had was an executive session, but then he found out that night and then resigned the next morning. If you wanted me to get into red flags that I discovered just in the last week or two, I can get into red flags, and we can talk about some of those things.
Well, we should talk about it. I mean, the reason he really had an issue with Dan for a while was because he felt like Dan lied about him. He said he tried to reach out to him twice. He reached out to him one time about a meeting. The second time he reached out to him about getting password, wanting his help to get password. Even now, I mean, he's helped the guy in the fire department with issues. He doesn't get paid, he just did it because he's been here a long time, he knows something that was important that had to be done.
He shouldn't be doing it. He's not
Well,
an
he shouldn't
employee.
be doing
He
it.
shouldn't have access to it.
That's right.
He shouldn't, yeah,
Right.
so he
But
shouldn't.
they called him and wanted help because
Then-
he wasn't getting it here.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I came honestly today because a lot of people have asked me, just out of the blue, discussing, I've been involved, I've known Dan for a long time, known Mike for a long time, had Jack, what was going on with the fire department, okay? So they answered that early on. Now it sounds like we've got a whole nother issue where somebody with an ego, not whoever this Taylor is upset because somebody was doing, and this is what the taxpayers want from our trustees, is you guys to look into stuff, okay? That's why we elect you. We want you to do this, okay? So if there was nothing to hide, there's nothing wrong, then fine, look into it, nothing wrong, okay? But now this person quits, and what you guys are proposing is someone can quit and leave, but come back for more money, and I just think that sounds a little weird to me. And
He never had a contract, they wouldn't even bother.
okay,
They
that is
wouldn't bother looking at
wonderful
it
what he has
for
done
months.
for years, and I'm sure everyone appreciates job well done, great. But I do think there is concern, and whether the trustees, whether you guys hear this a lot or not, how many more times is someone's friend, is something, I mean, we need some outside people. It is discussed in our community, it is asked about, I think, I agree, I'm not sure who would hire $35,000, maybe we have someone else in our community that's retired that might say, I did IT for years, recently retired, sure, I'd interview for it. I don't know, I know nothing about IT, nothing about the job. What I do know is, I would, if I left my job tomorrow, if I went in and said, I quit, and then changed my mind, and then asked for a allegedly 200% raise, I'd be laughed at. I would be laughed at, and I consider myself decent at my job. I would be laughed at. So I think that's a little alarming, like can he just interview like everyone else is interviewed? Maybe you guys would hire him, I don't know.
And that probably would've been good if when he submitted his proposal that they asked for him to submit a proposal. And when he did, they never even bothered to talk to him. Never called him in for an interview, they never called him in to talk to him about it. He made a proposal to them back in January or February, I don't know when. And there's
Maybe
months.
it's just something that, it sounds like you have a personal friendship, really, I don't know, with this person, cause you're obviously defending them, which is fine, that's your friend or whatever, but maybe we need an outside person to look at this, if this is that sensitive of an issue, I don't know, it just seems like a very weird, from an outside person, I noticed out in the community, I'm just saying there's a lot of discussion already, even, I mean, I've talked to other firemen, not in ours, in other departments, to be clear. It's just a lot of weird things going on that's raising a lot of questions.
Well, what Jack's saying, he did make a proposal for 4 months and it was never acted upon by Mr. Robison. There wasn't.
I didn't request that.
It wasn't, what?
I never requested a proposal.
I didn't say you requested it, I said he.
Rejected.
he made
Rejected.
the proposal.
Somebody said
So.
Somebody requested, he wouldn't just write up on his own.
initiated and
Somebody
asked
requested.
to be interviewed and talked to about it, and it was never happened.
Was this after he quit or before he quit? I'm just trying to,
It was before.
Okay.
Before. So after that happened, and then Mike has been here, and we know what we're getting with him. With your retired person that might work for 18,000, or what Mike's suggesting, might not be half experienced as Mike Taylor is. We already know what we're getting with him.
Right.
And that's how I feel about it. Now, has he increased a lot? Yes, a lot. But the average in IT in Hamilton County is $50,000. We are still saving the township money and our taxpayers money.
But why
And
did
that's
you
how
quit
I'm looking at
the
it.
day after I just have a problem with the whole
Well,
quitting and walking
We're gonna put
away.
everything out in the open. Him and Mr. Roberson didn't see eye to eye. He got the inkling that Mike didn't like him. Mike Roberson did not like Mike Taylor. And there was a
I know,
conflict there.
we're not 12, you're now you're honestly, Dan, you're
No,
making
I'm-
this sound worse to me.
I'm not even involved
Like,
in it, except
people
I'm
don't
up here
like me
voting
every
for it.
day.
No, they had a conflict, and it was apparent that he asked them about the proposal, and he never talked to the man about
I
it.
just
And he's a
don't-
professional, and he was an employee at the time.
And he's a director of an IT company. I mean, Mike's the director
So,
for Ticketmaster.
you can still be professional to someone and still have a conflict with them. You haven't done it at the courthouse, I haven't done it at the courthouse, I will tell you that.
If someone walked into your
And I
office and walked out, it's
still
not gonna work.
Treat everyone with professionalism.
As do I, and you're
I
saying
understand.
that we had I forget how you just described it. Who did you hear that from? That we had a disagreement or that we're didn't see eye to eye?
I heard from you.
Mike said he had a disagreement.
Right.
And
Mike
also-
said that we
also-
had a disagreement. Mike said that I requested the proposal. Mike said, you're hearing one
You're saying-
side of the story.
You're saying, that's right, we were hearing one side, maybe we should table this until Mike can stand there and answer your questions in front of the people, how about that?
Well, you want-
He was here last meeting.
And I was ready for you to bring it up, and I was ready for,
But we
you
didn't
said
bring
this
it up.
was your proposal and you were gonna bring it up, and you did not bring it up with the
Right.
news cameras and everything here. So, if you say you wanna talk about it, here's,
Actually, gentlemen, I think all three of you need to go into a room by yourselves and argue amongst yourselves, because this isn't getting
No,
anywhere.
we're not making any progress on what we should have been talking.
It's
And
not
But
the
Mike's
end.
right, we wanted to bring this up,
We
and
need to move on.
we need to move on, so you make whatever proposal you want, you made your proposal.
I just hope this is, I just hope at least what we're saying is taken into consideration, cause I would definitely have a problem with rehiring someone like this.
yes,
Did he ever give any explanations why he quit, all of a sudden, other than the vague explanation you read to us? I mean, it seems very odd, and has he given any explanation to you, Mr. Reninger?
It's just that he felt like he was being disrespected when Mike talked to us about wanting to bring in somebody to review the IT job, which, is that guy any more qualified than Mike? Would that individual have a higher position wherever she worked at Green Township or wherever than Mike did? Mike's a director, he's been a director for a lot longer than us, we've been trustees of an IT company. I mean, was she more qualified to come in and tell Mike, oh, you guys ain't doing this right, you should be doing this? Maybe she is, maybe she was.
Well,
Yeah,
isn't
if
that-
he comes back, is
you
he
don't have
gonna
to be
feel that way
qualified.
again, every
Isn't
time he wants to
that-
be audited?
Please?
Isn't that the idea, that we want you guys to have something looked at, to look at a third party? Is he gonna get like she said, he's gonna be upset again when some
Is he gonna quit
question?
again? Is he gonna quit again because he feels he's
He's been
disrespected?
Yeah, disrespectful to have an IT professional come in and give an opinion about the IT operation,
If it's
which,
full
so that we can
disclosure
make
and nothing to
informed
hide, then
decisions as the board that oversees that. And I, again, took over IT on January 5th or 6th. So if there was a proposal that he put together in September, October, whenever that was, I took over on January 5th or 6th, whenever that organizational meeting was. That's when I have actual oversight of the committee. And at that point, I'm the head of IT, working with our administrator for 2 weeks, in which case I propose bringing someone that has a great track record and is highly respected in the IT world as far as townships, to come and just give us a quick opinion about our operation, and he quits the next day.
Who'd she work with?
Delhi
Township?
Township? Yes, Delhi Township. And she was retiring, she had no interest in working any further, she wanted to just spend time with her grandkids. But I said, if you have someone with years of experience overseeing an IT operation at a township that's right next door to us, that can come and give us a quick evaluation so that we can make heads or tails of what a WAN is, and he gets offended and feels disrespected so much that he quits the next morning.
I mean, does everybody, like, would you guys have not wanted it looked at? I guess I just don't understand what the big deal is having it looked at.
We don't know.
I think the timeline where.
Gonna bring her in, we didn't have problems then. I
He
don't
did.
know why we were bringing her in to begin with, and that came out of the blue.
Yes, we didn't even know that.
We didn't even know about
We don't.
Right, I informed you, I took over on I'll say it again, I was put in charge of it in January, 2 weeks prior. For 2 weeks, I looked at, in between our meetings, that's when I was put in. Then I reached out to Delhi Township, found this individual, and brought it up to you guys as a proposal on January the 18th.
Why would you just automatically reach out to Delhi? Did you know him? Or did somebody tell you to reach out to Delhi? Why did you reach out to Delhi?
Because I have a great relationship with a lot of different townships. I talked to Green Township, I talked to Delhi Township, I talked to Sycamore Township, I talked to Springfield Township, and I said, do you or other townships have someone that is qualified and has good experience that can come in and evaluate our process? Someone said Delhi Township actually has someone that is a long-time experienced IT network administrator who has the experience and actually will have the time to do it because she's retiring, and so the timing couldn't be more perfect. You want to accuse of, how did I get this? It's very simple. I cast a net out there and said, can we get somebody that's qualified and well-versed in township operations that can give us an opinion? And that's who I got. I have never met that woman. I've still never met that woman. I don't know. She could be sitting right in front of me and I would have no clue who they
Can
are.
we table and go to executive session next meeting?
Sure, but I just,
We can table it and go into executive session next week.
Well, that's what we should be doing.
We should be moving along anyhow.
I have nothing to, I have nothing to hide on this issue, but that's fine.
Say you had anything.
Mr.
I
Robinson,
don't have nothing.
you mentioned
I
if you're privy
think we're just wasting time.
to discuss, you said there's other red flags, are you able to share that with us?
I can, yeah. I mean, it's, I wanted to,
I mean, I think quitting suddenly in this situation is a red flag in and of itself, but what else?
so I would just share one of many that, did anyone approve changes and proposals to our contract with IMS in December, this past December. Did you by chance?
I have no idea.
No.
Okay.
Mike just had
All right, I didn't either. So, again, as a trustee, so I asked IMS, our third-party vendor, IT vendor, to, when we're left in the dark and it's just, we're thrown out and completely have no idea what's going on, I reached out to our contact there and said, can you give us all contracts that we have currently with you? And they sent me, I think, 6 or 7 different attachments. The previous contracts before 2022, which I came on just 15 months ago, were signed by Mr. Beck and/or Ms. Oser as our fiscal officer. Here, if you want to see it, and I highlighted that and just printed this off today, are contracts from IMS from December of 2022, in which case that is a new contract with IMS. And here is a increase for Microsoft Cloud Managed Services. My understanding is that the only one that can approve ongoing expenses, especially a couple $1,000s, is a trustee and/or a fiscal officer, and that these are things that would need to be voted on by a board. Apparently, there was such little oversight before I took over in January that these were approved by Mike Taylor and signed off on as contracts to commit our township to taxpayers' dollars as it relates to our third-party vendor. I never saw that. You just heard everyone else say that they had never seen that. It was never voted on, it was never approved.
Mike, I said, I don't recall.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to
Okay.
look at.
And this says a
minutes.
proposal.
Quit putting stuff
Says-
out.
it says
You
proposal,
gotta
Mike.
look at minutes and see if it was passed or
It
not.
says proposal. Maybe Mike's accepting a proposal.
Correct. This was a proposal by IMS and it's signed off.
I don't know. Yeah, looks like it's
I mean, you know, I have more, we could go on, we've received invoices from this individual that actually if he buys a laptop, and a laptop costs $1,400, the invoice is paid to him as an individual. If I buy a laptop, I provide the copy of the expense and the invoice and the receipt of the purchase, and then you either get a PO or whatever else and pay it. He's buying it and then saying, pay him that. Well, how do I know that the laptop is $1,200, $1,400, $3,000, $900? I have no idea.
A receipt from Mike Taylor on a purchase?
He did a receipt.
Right.
He would do it his own
Who
invoice.
His own
He would
receipt.
invoice us.
Who told him to buy the computers?
Are you kidding?
Wait, who told him to buy the computers?
It doesn't matter, the issue is the issue. Okay, so let's say hypothetically, Mr. Reed asked him to buy a laptop and it costs $1,400, and he goes to Best Buy, then you give a receipt from Best Buy and say that this costs $13.99, and here it is, and either pay it to Best Buy and/or you are getting reimbursed for that amount. These are all things that have come to light here recently as I've tried to get a handle on our IT operation. And again, that concerns me that I asked just to get an idea of what's going on, to bring someone in. Again, pull back that curtain, lift that hood, take a look and just give me an opinion. And I didn't know these things back then, all this stuff back then. These are all things that have come to light since. And this is the person that you want to hand over the keys to and say, here you are, you're hired back, congratulations, you get a 211% raise, and welcome back, and we're going to entrust him with our whole operation. And above all that, you guys, I asked to disband the committees at the organizational meeting, but you guys voted against it because you thought it was important to have personal oversight over certain departments. This is my department, and you're all deciding that, you know, what my opinion doesn't matter, you're just gonna go.
I don't even think that it would be even a
With
question.
this going on, we
He
asked
wants
to table it
he
two
wants a
times.
computer. I'm,
It seems, well, I
the
think that's part
receipts
of,
had to be
part of the issue.
present, or you don't get it.
Right, the part of the issue
It
was.
should not even be talked about.
No, that's right, but the issue is spending money in a timely manner, whereas Mike Taylor would go to get, he probably went to Best Buy. Just like the TVs, they wanted TVs downstairs, they wanted them in before a certain date, because somebody was ripping it downstairs, they wanted a TV to watch the Bengals game. So Mike Taylor goes to Walmart, buys a TV, comes in and installs it.
Wait a
When he
minute.
gets-
What?
Wait a second,
It's
hold
somebody-
on a second.
We
I
approved
coached-
those at the meeting.
We have-
Okay,
we
hold-
approved it.
okay, hold on, I coached for a local school district for 20 years. I couldn't buy a candy bar without a purchase order for my team, okay?
Everything
I
was- yeah.
have to turn in a purchase order. And that goes
We're not
back
saying it
before.
wasn't,
Right.
Julie.
No, I'm just
I'm
saying, but
asking Cindy
Jack
if
is
it's
justifying again
This is
why this guy
getting-
goes out
It's getting
drawing.
out of control, that stuff's happening, it's not happening.
Well, Jack's justifying
That is
it.
happening.
No,
I'm
it's
not justifying, I'm just saying
at all.
that people
I think he is.
telling me
We
he did it
approved
right
those
away.
TVs on the record.
Mike does it right
Wait,
away.
I'm just saying, okay.
Just say,
My
just tell
point is
him.
Jack's, that is
So-
justifying
so-
everything about this guy. I'm just saying.
And I've asked again to table this.
Okay.
And we'll
Make a
table it
motion
for
to
2
table.
weeks and we'll make a decision.
Okay. That way we give Mike a chance to be here and he can respond.
Sure.
So. You're still up.
You're still up.
I will yield the rest of my time.